All right. What does it mean adopting Agile at a scale mean? What does that mean? So the idea of scaling Agile is to enable you to adapt and stay competitive by responding quickly and adequately to customers' needs and adding delightful touches to keep customers coming back for more. And I can give you a couple of examples of companies that do this. Let's take an example of Apple. Apple is one company that adds that delightful touch to their products. And one of the products we'll talk about today is the iPhone. Why do we think customers, an iPhone is coming out, say, maybe in 2 days, and before those 2 days, people are already waiting for that phone to come out. 6 hours to that time, people are already waiting. 12 hours, they're already waiting for that phone. Apple probably just added maybe one piece of functionality to the previous one, maybe 13.5, and then 14 is coming out, or 15 is coming out. They just added a piece of functionality to it, but people are already waiting 6 hours. They don't mind like standing under the sun. They don't care if it's raining, but they're waiting. Why is that happening? What has Apple done to captivate their customers? They've added a touch of delight to that product. How did they do that? Did they do that by scaling up? Ultimately, it means spreading Agile working to every team at every level and in every department. So we're talking system thinking. We're not talking about one part of the business. We're talking across multiple departments in a business. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about supply chain. We're talking about inventory. Every part of the organization is doing Agile. Top management are included. And we're reducing coordination and control to a minimum. The main tools for these are autonomous teams, alignment on values and goals, very, very, very key. Everyone is aligned on the values and the goals. Accountability and transparency at every level, both up and down. What remains of an original hierarchical structure? Everyone is involved. The variety in scaled Agile frameworks, the structures, the practices they advocate, and what specific issues they address varies. Which one will suit you most depend on what stage you're in on your Agile journey. You just can't have one team or two teams and you decide you want to scale. It doesn't work that way. Or your company just transitioned and you guys don't even understand what Agile is to start with. Those are things that we look out for. How well, what a framework is designed to accomplish to fit your aspirations for scaling Agile, eventually becoming an Agile business. Scaled Agile framework. This is the one that we actually support the teams with. We had one over the weekend. So what is scaled Agile? SAFe. It's a prescriptive nature, provide concrete guidance without forcing you to immediately overhaul your enterprise organizational structure or your product architecture to help minimize team dependencies. One of the tools it uses for this, it's its quarterly planning. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talk about, oh, we're doing PI planning in my company. Oh, we're doing PI planning in my company. I recall that Mama T said one recently that they're actually currently having PI. Priska also posted on the chat that she went to another country for the PI planning. That's what makes Scaled Agile unique. They always have this quarterly planning called program increment planning. It is a top-down collaborative event and planning circles on top of and overarching the standard Scrum sprint cycle or cadence in Kanban. PI planning allows you to align everyone on strategic goal for the upcoming 3 months. So every 3 months we come together, we spend 2 days planning. What is the strategic goal for the business for the next 3 months? What do we want to achieve? How are we going to work around this? What is the business value? It helps surface dependencies between teams and departments. What are the dependencies that we're seeing? What would be a blocker or an impediment to the teams working and the departments involved? And then we come up with a prioritization that allows us to move efficiently towards the PI goal. We're going to watch a video.
So previously, when we were using spreadsheets, we were heavily meeting dependent. It took us hours to
SAFE provides the operating system for organizations to achieve business agility through the 7 core competencies of the lean enterprise: team and technical agility, agile product delivery, enterprise solution delivery, lean portfolio management, organizational agility, continuous learning culture, and lean agile leadership. It all starts with team and technical agility, and specifically with the Agile team. An Agile team is a group of 5 to 11 members which can define, build, test, and where applicable, deploy value in short time boxes called iterations. The team uses Agile methods like Scrum or Kanban, or a combination thereof. The team starts each iteration by planning what they can deliver in an iteration planning event. The product owner provides guidance on what needs to be built by representing the customer on the team. Every day, the team meets to discuss how they're progressing toward their iteration goals in a daily stand-up. At the end of each iteration, the team demonstrates the work they've completed in an iteration review. Before the next iteration, the team reflects on what to improve for the next iteration in an iteration retrospective. The Scrum Master is the coach of the team, helping it improve and facilitating the various events. In an enterprise, multiple teams need to work together as a team of Agile teams to deliver value. In SAFE, these teams of Agile teams are called an Agile Release Train, or ART, and include 50 to 125 people. ARTs are cross-functional, including all the people needed to explore customer needs and then build and deliver solutions to customers. The ART uses Agile product delivery practices to deliver the right value at the right time. The ART works within a time box called a program increment, or PI, which is typically 5 iterations long. The ART follows similar events to teams. At the beginning of the PI, all teams come together to plan their work for the PI in a PI planning event. PI planning is facilitated by the release train engineer, who serves as the coach for the ART. Product management provides the vision and backlog. The system architect provides architectural guidance. The teams then plan the work for the PI, identifying what can be delivered. A program board is used to visualize the dependencies between the teams. Every iteration, the ART demos the integrated solution across all teams in a system demo. And at the end of the PI, all teams meet to retrospect on how to improve in an inspect and adapt event. Product managers use customer centricity and design thinking to understand customer problems and discover solutions that are desirable, viable, feasible, and sustainable. The ART builds a continuous delivery pipeline and uses DevOps practices to release on demand, delivering value when it is needed. Sometimes a single Agile release train is not enough to deliver a solution, and the enterprise solution delivery competency is needed. A solution train is used to coordinate multiple ARTs and suppliers to deliver large, complex solutions. Solution management has content authority on what gets built. The solution architect oversees the architecture across ARTs, and a solution train engineer coaches and facilitates solution train events. In order to align strategy and execution, lean portfolio management provides a way to create strategic themes and a portfolio vision to align solution development with enterprise strategy. Lean portfolio management helps enterprises organize around the delivery of value in value streams, as well as fund these value streams to avoid the problems that are typically associated with project cost accounting. Having strategy, however, is not enough. Organizational agility provides the tools that help portfolios achieve strategy agility and change direction quickly when needed, organizing and reorganizing around value. It builds the environment for flow of value across the entire enterprise and beyond solution development, and helps grow lean thinking people and agile teams. Continuous learning culture drives a culture of innovation and relentless improvement to help enterprises become learning organizations. Finally, a lean enterprise is built on lean agile leadership. To achieve and sustain business agility, leaders must embody, teach, and exhibit the mindsets, values, and principles that are the basis of lean and agile. Lead by example and guide everyone toward this new way of working using the implementation roadmap as a guide. Together, these 7 competencies build the lean enterprise and make true business agility possible.
All right, so that is Scaled Agile. I know a lot of us have already done our certification. We know what Scaled Agile is, and a couple of people work in a Scaled Agile environment. So if you haven't done your certification, we're going to share the dates on the next one so you can join and be part of the Scaled Agile community. So we're going to talk about another framework. This is called Large Scale Scrum. It's called LESS. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but it's one of the frameworks that is out there. What does this mean? It's a framework for scaling agile product delivery. The idea driving everything in a large scale Scrum is to let you own it. Scaled up version of one team Scrum. It maintains many of the practices and idea of a one team Scrum. One team, not multiple teams. That's the idea that they use. One team Scrum to get the job done. So you do more with less. They have a single product backlog. It is for the product and not the team. They have one definition of done across all the teams. They have one potentially shippable product increment at the end of each sprint. They have one product owner. Let's watch a video that talks about what less is.
Last year, I made 403.
How are great products created? To develop a great small product, we'd sit together with our team and the customer, give them a new version every few minutes, and work together on the technology to solve their problems. You already know this is the best way to develop small products. But what usually happens with large product development? Typically, we get boring specifications from an internal department, then hand over our work to another internal department. We interact with managers instead of real customers, don't have much say in the process, don't have much effect on the whole product, and lack a sense of purpose. We might even believe we're doing Scrum or some other agile methods, but our organization's inability to learn and adapt to reality will bite us sooner or later. What was better about small-scale development? Our approach was customer-centric. We saw the whole product at once. We had minimal process, and we had effective reality checks about the product and our way of working. It was natural. Is it possible to take what works so naturally in small-scale development and apply it to large-scale development? This question has driven Craig Larman and Bus Vivodi for over a decade. It's led to hundreds of experiments and the formulation of LESS. LESS is a simple framework for scaling agile development using these principles and some others. LESS has been used with groups of 12 people, hundreds of people, and thousands of people on products from banking to telecom, games to radar systems. How does LESS work? LESS is multi-team Scrum. There's one product owner providing vision and one adjustable prioritized list of customer-centric items, the product backlog. We want one integrated shippable product increment every sprint, every 1 to 4 weeks. Multiple teams develop this product one shared sprint at a time. Development is iterative and incremental. Each sprint starts with Sprint Planning 1, a short shared event where each team selects features from the top of the product backlog that they will implement during the sprint. That's followed by Sprint Planning 2, where the teams discuss their strategies for developing their features. During the sprint, each self-managing team develops the features they selected while collaborating and continuously integrating with the other teams on the potentially shippable product increment. Coordination outside the team is now a team responsibility, so there are no assigned coordinators. Halfway through the sprint, teams briefly pause the current sprint work for product backlog refinement, collaboration with customers and end users to clarify work for future sprints. By connecting teams to customers, we free up the product owner for vision and prioritization. We have one sprint review, a shared session where teams and customers explore what was done and determine the best next increment to develop. Each team retrospects to inspect and adapt its own way of working. We want teams to own their methods and processes, not rent them. Without ownership, there can be no continuous improvement, and unless we don't stop with the team retrospectives. Teams, product owner, Scrum Masters, and management use the overall retrospective to explore the systemic and organizational obstacles that prevent higher value delivery. Use less to inspect and adapt the entire organization. Then they repeat the whole cycle, experimenting and making wiser mistakes each time. When we have more than 8 teams, we do something similar called less huge, still targeting one shippable product every sprint. So that's the less framework, just a few rules you can learn in a few minutes. But it won't work in your organization. Not the way your organization is now. Your organization would have to change into one that allows it to work. This isn't quick or easy. You and your organization are currently designed to resist, undermine, and neutralize any steps towards real agility. The few rules that less has are impactful, with far-reaching implications. Adopting less can take years of stripping away the existing organizational rules, processes, structure, and habits. Less adoptions aren't just process changes or rules added to your existing organizational structure. You've already seen Agile labels applied to existing habits with no real change. Less adoptions go deeper, challenging conventional wisdom about projects, products, roles, technical practices, and management practices. We allow agility to work by changing structure and policy. For example, the teams must be cross-functional, which means they don't only code and test. They also include software design architecture skills, business domain knowledge, and UX/UI design skills. The teams are responsible for requirements clarification with the customers and end users. The teams must also be feature teams, which means they can develop end customer-centric features, not just internal components. Less teams span components and work in a shared code environment. Organizations often try to solve immediate problems by adding complexity. For example, let's say our product crashed in production because a team neglected to run a test. My first reflexes as a manager would be to impose prescriptive process steps on the teams, assign someone new to a specialized role, or form a new department to prevent this error in the future. But all 3 of these quick fixes can exacerbate the underlying problems by reducing team responsibility. Giving responsibilities to processes, specialized roles, or other departments takes responsibilities away from the team. Companies wind up with employees who are just mindless zombies. We believe in removing that complexity instead. More with less. More with less also discourages things like handoffs, preparation sprints, stabilization sprints, so-called dependencies, separate analysis groups, separate architects, and separate queues for each team. In less, Scrum Masters and management help the teams learn. Management shifts focus from direct command to improving the capability of the development system. In our experience, the less framework is the minimum, barely sufficient structure that product groups need to take ownership, gain a whole product view, and optimize organizations for value delivery and flexibility. You can learn about the experimental mindset and also over 500 experiments that help inform the framework, guides with strong recommendations about how to apply it, and more about the 10 principles we touched on. There's also us, a growing community of practitioners and coaches. We invite you to move away from life-sucking industrial age machine organizations towards human, purposeful organizations where work can be fun. It won't be easy, quick, or painless. But if you work at it, you can simplify your organization, increase your adaptability to changing business conditions, remove unnecessary drudgery, and unleash the potential your organization had all along.
More with less. All right. So that's the less framework. Let's talk about the next one. All right. So the next one is Nexus Framework. The Nexus Framework defined the Nexus as a group of 3 to 9 Scrum teams with a single product owner and a single product backlog, similar to Scrum at scale. It introduces a Nexus integration team, a cross-team refinement to coordinate the work and dependencies between teams. Other adaptations to single team Scrum events are, so they have a separate sprint planning for the team, and then they now have a Nexus sprint planning for the entire team together to coordinate the work of all teams in the Nexus. They have a Nexus daily Scrum in addition to each team's daily Scrum to keep tabs on newly discovered dependencies and integration issues. Nexus sprint review. So they have their individual team reviews, and they now have the Nexus sprint review that replaces individual team sprint review. All right, let's hear from the Nexus video.
Hundhausen. In this lesson, I'm going to introduce you to the Nexus, the framework for scaling Scrum. I'm going to tell you why we created it and how it can help your organization scale its software product delivery effectively. Now, having some working knowledge of Scrum and having read the current Scrum guide will be helpful as we explore the Nexus scaled Scrum framework. We created the Nexus to help identify and minimize dependencies, which become increasingly more abundant and critical at scale. Our guiding principle as we created the Nexus is that scaled Scrum is still Scrum. I think that this will be apparent as we wrap up our lesson by taking a walkthrough of the Nexus. But before we jump into the Nexus, let's first define what we mean by scaled Scrum. Take the following quadrant. On the bottom, we see the number of Scrum teams. The left column represents organizations or business groups who have 1 or 2 Scrum teams. The right column represents organizations with more than 2 Scrum teams. On the left are the number of products being developed. The bottom row represents a single product, and the top row represents multiple products. When a single team works on a single product, we only need to use Scrum. This is exactly what Scrum was intended for. If we add a second team, in our opinion, does not become a scaling situation, as the 2 Scrum teams can coordinate easily enough throughout the day, handling any dependencies that might arise. When those 1 or 2 teams are working on multiple products, well, that can be painful, but common in many organizations that have more products than they do teams. If we increase the number of teams working on these multiple products, this becomes portfolio management. This is where management spends their time selecting and optimizing the people and the teams for these various product development efforts. This still is not scaling. When we have 3 or more Scrum teams working on a single product, this is scaled Scrum. It brings about a unique set of problems, which is what the Nexus Scaled Scrum framework addresses. Let me describe this in a different way. With a single Scrum team, working from a single product backlog, working in a single domain, things are complex, but still manageable. Well, when I say domain, I really mean a swamp, which is how most teams would describe their code base, their tests, or lack thereof, their tools, their automation, or lack thereof, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this cloud here represents a general inefficiency or waste due to handoffs, coordination, integration, rework, and even undone work and technical debt. It means that every sprint, the team will need to spend a portion of its time managing and organizing work, resolving dependencies, and working around this gunk, which is time not spent innovating. With 3 Scrum teams still working from a single product backlog and in a similar swamp, the inefficiency and waste due to dependencies grows at an alarming nonlinear rate. In other words, a lot less time is available for product innovation. With 9 Scrum teams still working from a single product backlog and in a similar swamp, the inefficiency and waste due to the dependencies is almost suffocating. Without deliberate action, these teams with their 40 to 80 individuals will spend most of their time each sprint just staying out of each other's way. Product innovation will suffer, quality issues and technical debt will skyrocket. Before management decides to add another team, they really need to ask how much more value will be gained by doing so. Now, the goal of the Nexus Scaled Scrum framework is to scale the delivery of measurable business value as uniformly as possible, so that as your costs go up by adding more people, productivity should rise as close to the same rate as possible. Now that I've explained why we created it, let's take a look at the Nexus. The Nexus is a framework for developing and sustaining scaled product and software delivery initiatives. It uses Scrum as its building block. Much like Scrum, the framework consists of roles, events, and artifacts, as well as the rules that bind them all together. If you're familiar with the Scrum diagram, then you can't help but notice the similarities here. All of the roles, events, and artifacts are the same, but you probably notice some additions as well. So let's begin our tour. In Scrum, product backlog refinement is optional, but in the Nexus, it becomes an event, which means it's required. The number, frequency, duration, and attendance of the product backlog refinement is based on the dependencies and uncertainty inherent in the product backlog. The purpose of Nexus sprint planning is to coordinate the activities of all Scrum teams in a Nexus for the current sprint. The product owner provides domain knowledge and guides selection and priority decisions. The product backlog should be adequately refined, with dependencies identified and removed or minimized prior to this event. Now, during Nexus sprint planning, the appropriate representatives of each of the Scrum teams validate and make adjustments to the ordering of the work as created during those prior refinement events. Nexus sprint planning is complete when each Scrum team has finished their individual sprint planning events. A Nexus sprint backlog is simply the composite of all the product backlog items from all the individual Scrum team sprint backlogs. It's used to highlight dependencies and flow of work during the sprint. It's updated at least daily, often as part of the Nexus Daily Scrum. Speaking of the Nexus Daily Scrum, this is an event where the appropriate representatives from the individual development teams inspect the current state of the integrated increment and identify any integration issues or newly discovered cross-team dependencies or impacts. The development teams use the Nexus Daily Scrum to inspect progress towards the Nexus sprint goal. The individual Scrum teams then take back those issues and any work that was identified during the Nexus Daily Scrum to their individual Scrum teams for planning inside their individual Daily Scrum events. The Nexus Sprint Review is held at the end of the sprint to provide feedback on the integrated increment that the Nexus has built over that sprint and to adapt the product backlog if needed. The Nexus Sprint Review replaces individual Scrum team sprint reviews because the entire integrated increment is the focus for capturing feedback from stakeholders. The Nexus Sprint Retrospective is a formal opportunity for a Nexus to inspect and adapt itself and create a plan for improvements to be enacted during the next sprint. This ensures continuous improvement. The Nexus Sprint Retrospective consists of 3 parts. The first part is an opportunity for appropriate representatives from each Scrum team to meet and make issues transparent to other teams. The second part consists of each Scrum team holding their own sprint retrospective as described in the Scrum framework. The individual Scrum teams should form any actions to address the shared issues. The third part is an opportunity for team representatives to come together again and agree on how to visualize and track the identified actions. This allows the Nexus as a whole to adapt and improve. Now let's take a look at a new role in the Nexus. While the Scrum team is responsible for delivering done increments of potentially releasable products, it's the Nexus integration team that's accountable for ensuring that a done integrated increment is produced at least once every sprint. So what does that mean? Well, integration includes resolving any technical or non-technical cross-team constraints that may impede the Nexus's ability to deliver a constantly integrated increment. Now, that doesn't mean that the Nexus integration team does the work. It's similar to the way a Scrum Master should coach and mentor and facilitate a Scrum team to resolve their own impediments rather than doing the work for them. So let's review. We've defined what scaling is and what it isn't. Hopefully this helps you understand whether or not you are in a scaling situation in your organization. As more teams and individuals are added, dependencies and integration issues become more abundant and can lead to waste if not managed. Nexus was created to raise the transparency of these dependencies and offer additional roles, events, and artifacts to mitigate them. And Nexus is still Scrum, so don't cast aside anything you've learned about Scrum through experience or reading the Scrum Guide, because it all still applies. So if you find yourself in an organization struggling to sequence the work across teams, suffering dependencies and suffering integration issues, consider descaling first. Remove the complexity and cost of the additional individuals and teams until you can maximize the business value being delivered. If you still need to scale, consider the Nexus Framework. I hope this lesson has helped explain to you what the Nexus Framework is, why we created it, and how it can help your organization deliver business value in the form of working software.
All right, so that's the video on Nexus. So many frameworks, so many similar things that we're going to see across all those frameworks. All right, so let's talk about the next one. This is called Disciplined Agile Delivery, also known as DAD. It's a lightweight. It shines a light on the what's and the tools you need to make it happen, but it leaves the how up to you. So Disciplined Agile gives guidance on 4 levels. It talks about the foundation, the disciplined DevOps. We know what DevOps mean, the value stream, and then also talks about the disciplined agile enterprise. Let's talk about the foundation. This gives you the principles, promises, guidelines of the DA, disciplined agile mindset, the lean and agile principles, more traditional approaches, roles and team structure you can adapt. What you need to choose your way of working, WOW. Wow. Disciplined DevOps extends standard DevOps. We know DevOps is development and operation. So streamlining development and operations by integrating security and data management to it. What are their value streams? Value streams help you tie your strategies together, improve each part of your business in the context of a whole. Systemic approach, not one part of the business, the entire business. The disciplined agile enterprise, it helps you create culture and structure conducive to change, learning, and innovation. Let's watch this video.
The best, most complete toolbox in the world won't be much use if you can't find the right tool for the job at hand. That's why most professional mechanics use those big rolling metal tool chests with multiple drawers and half a ton of capacity. They enable mechanics to find just the tool they need when they need it, without having to waste time. Disciplined Agile works the same way. Its process blades have been organized into 4 layers. The foundation layer provides the conceptual underpinnings of the Disciplined Agile toolkit. This includes the principles, promises, and guidelines of the Disciplined Agile mindset. Fundamental concepts from both Agile and Lean. Fundamental concepts from serial, traditional approaches, roles and team structures, and the fundamentals of choosing your way of working. The next layer up is the Disciplined DevOps layer, where DevOps is the streamlining of solution development and operations. Disciplined DevOps is an enterprise-class approach to DevOps. It includes disciplined agile delivery, security, data management, release management, support, and IT operations. As we move up, the next layer is the value stream layer. The value stream layer works to achieve business agility, the quick realization of business value, predictably, sustainably, and with high quality. 3 are unique to the value stream layer: portfolio management, product management, and program management. It shares research and development, business operations, strategy, governance, marketing, continuous improvement, and sales with the next layer up, which is the Disciplined Agile Enterprise layer. The Disciplined Agile Enterprise layer focuses on the rest of the enterprise activities that support an organization's value streams. It includes enterprise architecture, people management, information technology, asset management, transformation, finance, vendor management, and legal. So, there you go. A disciplined agile toolbox, complete with drawers, or in this case, layers, to keep things organized. So you can find exactly what you need to address the challenges you face when you need it without having to waste time.
So many frameworks. All right. So we talked about discipline. We're going to go to the next one. This is Spotify model. I know a couple of us know about Spotify. We have Spotify on our phones. They actually have their own model too that they work on. So Spotify is the largest and most popular audio streaming subscription service in the world, with an estimate of 286 million users. That's a lot of people on their network. A key part of Spotify's success is driven by the company's unique approach to organizing around work to enhance team agility. The Spotify model is a people-driven, autonomous approach to scaling Agile that emphasizes the importance of culture and network. Everyone has what they stand up for, what they want to emphasize on with their scaling Agile. But for Spotify, it's more about culture and network. It has helped Spotify and other organizations increase innovation and productivity. By focusing on autonomy, they're giving their team opportunity to grow. They're giving them the space, the room to be creative. communication, accountability, and quality. So they have different things that they call their teams. They have squad, tribe, they have trio, different models that they call their team. So their squad is similar to a Scrum team. They just changed the name. So squads are cross-functional. And if you actually listen to all the other frameworks we've been talking about, they're very particular about having cross-functional teams. Very, very key. Across all the scaling methods, you need to have cross-functional team. It means you need to have everyone who is available with their skills to move a product to done and create an increment of value every iteration, every sprint. Autonomous teams, typically 6 to 12 individuals that are focused on one feature area. So each team works on a feature. And then they have tribes. When multiple squads coordinate with each other on the same feature area, they form a tribe. Tribes help build alignments across squads and typically consist of 40 to 150 people in order to maintain alignment. When we talked about scaled agile too, their art has 50 to 125 people. Getting similar. Let's watch a video on this.
One of the big success factors here at Spotify is our agile engineering culture. Culture tends to be invisible. We don't notice it because it's there all the time, kind of like the air we breathe. But if everyone understands the culture, we're more likely to be able to keep it and even strengthen it.
Before we were using Monday.com, our team was drowning in work.
Of this video. When our first music player was launched in 2008, we were pretty much a Scrum company. Scrum is a well-established agile development approach, and it gave us a nice team-based culture. However, a few years later, we had grown into a bunch of teams and found that some of the standard Scrum practices were actually getting in the way. So we decided to make all this optional. Rules are a good start, but then break them when needed. We decided that Agile matters more than Scrum, and Agile principles matter more than any specific practices. So we renamed the Scrum Master role to Agile Coach because we wanted servant leaders more than process masters. We also started using the term squad instead of Scrum team, and our key driving force became autonomy. So what is an autonomous squad? A squad is a small, cross-functional, self-organizing team, usually less than 8 people. They sit together and they have end-to-end responsibility for the stuff they build. Design, commit, deploy, maintenance, operations, the whole thing. Each squad has a long-term mission, such as make Spotify the best place to discover music, or internal stuff like infrastructure for A/B testing. Autonomy basically means that the squad decides what to build, how to build it, and how to work together while doing it. There are, of course, some boundaries to this, such as the squad mission, the overall product strategy for whatever area they are working on, and short-term goals that are renegotiated every quarter. Our office is optimized for collaboration. Here's a typical squad area. The squad members work closely together here with adjustable desks and easy access to each other's screens. They gather over here in the lounge for things like planning sessions and retrospectives. And back there is a huddle room for smaller meetings or just to get some quiet time. Almost all walls are whiteboards. So why is autonomy so important? Well, because it's motivating, and motivated people build better stuff. Also, autonomy makes us fast by letting decisions happen locally in the squad instead of via a bunch of managers and committees and stuff. It helps us minimize handoffs and waiting so we can scale without getting bogged down with dependencies and coordination. Although each squad has its own mission, they need to be aligned with product strategy, company priorities, and other squads. Basically, be a good citizen in the Spotify ecosystem. Spotify's overall mission is more important than any individual squad. So the key principle is really be autonomous, but don't sub-optimize. It's kind of like a jazz band. Although each musician is autonomous and plays his own instrument, they listen to each other and focus on the whole song together. That's how great music is created. So our goal is loosely coupled, but tightly aligned squads. We're not all there yet, but we experiment a lot with different ways of getting closer. In fact, that applies to most things in this video. This culture description is really a mix of what we are today and what we are trying to become in the future. Alignment and autonomy may seem like different ends of a scale, as in more autonomy equals less alignment. However, we think of it more like 2 different dimensions. Down here is low alignment and low autonomy, a micromanagement culture. No high-level purpose, just shut up and follow orders. Up here is high alignment, but still low autonomy. So leaders are good at communicating what problem needs to be solved, but they're also telling people how to solve it. High alignment and high autonomy means leaders focus on what problem to solve, but let the teams figure out how to solve it. What about down here then? Low alignment and high autonomy means teams do whatever they want and basically all run in different directions. Leaders are helpless and our product becomes a Frankenstein. We're trying hard to be up here, aligned autonomy. And we keep experimenting with different ways of doing that. So alignment enables autonomy. The stronger alignment we have, the more autonomy we can afford to grant. That means the leader's job is to communicate what problem needs to be solved and why. And the squads collaborate with each other to find the best solution.
What's up, guys? Alex here from Zbeck. Today I'm
Okay, I want us to listen to like a conversation from two guys. I know a couple of people know about them. Their names are Todd Miller and Ryan Ripley. They're two Agile coaches. I want us to hear their view on Spotify model before we go to the last model for the evening. So.
That is end of class energy right there. Yeah. Welcome to today's episode of Your Daily Scrum. I'm professional Scrum trainer Ryan Ripley. That is professional Scrum trainer Todd of the House Miller. We get together each and every day as part of the Agile for Humans company to help you get better at Scrum each and every day. Join us over at community.agileforhumans.com. It's a .com free community. Why aren't you there? Join us. Todd does a situation room every Monday that turns into a video the week later. You'll love it. Join the conversation. It's free. Lots of people, thousands upon thousands. It's great. Todd, let's talk about this. This came in on multiple comments, actually. We've noticed a trend, people asking us, how should a Scrum team use the Spotify model?
So first of all, they should not directly use the Spotify model. I think first of all, the Spotify model isn't even used by Spotify anymore. Okay, let's be straight with that. Second, it's got some good ideas in it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that your company is Spotify.
Yeah, this is, first of all, like and subscribe so that you can better understand this answer. I think liking and subscribing raises your IQ by at least 2 points. Is that fair, Todd? Now, as far as Scrum teams using Spotify, like Todd said, there's some really cool ideas on how people could work together. The tribes and the squads and all of those concepts are neat, especially like communities of practice. And look, the stuff, it's really cool ideas. Now, keep in mind, this is how one company in one context figured out how to best work together within other frameworks and within other ideas. They have moved so far past this model. They've continued to inspect and adapt and evolve that the paper that everyone references back to was written at one point in time that is gone, right? And so we're not trying to implement the Spotify model. There's no certification for a Spotify model. There's no checklist for the Spotify model. There's some good ideas that I think you should lift and shift and use if it makes sense in your context. Scrum is a framework. Bring those ideas into the framework if you see fit. But as far as like, we're a Spotify shop. No, you're not. There's no such thing. It does not exist.
Yeah, like you said, it was a white paper written on how the engineering culture of Spotify evolved, and it's evolved past it. And there are some really good ideas. And if you abstract it, the ideas that are in here and think about the way that they approach things from a systems thinking, holistic perspective, there's a lot of really interesting ideas in there that you can take and maybe model and think about so that you can arrive on some of your own new and maybe greater ideas that better mold themselves to the context of your situation. To just take this model and try to implement it will not work for you. That's the same with anything. Right.
Well, and keep in mind, Henrik Nyberg is the one who published that paper back in 2012. Spotify had Nyberg working with them, shaping the way that teams could work together. It's one of the product industry's elite, helping an organization define boundaries and constraints and roles and different ways to scale. I mean, you just don't have that everywhere. And so it's really, it's a person who's, you know, experimenting and trying things and evolving and changing. And it's not a model. It's the brainchild of a genius. And most of us are not Henrik Nyberg.
Yeah, he's got some great stuff too, Henrik Nyberg. So be sure to check out a little bit of a plug for his stuff. But I don't really know that I have much more to say here with this. I think that it's as with anything, as with complementary practices to Scrum, read about them, improve upon them, and do what fits the context of your situation.
Yeah. You know, I think the only thing I would add, Todd, is that when people say, well, what does it mean to like, why aren't there any best practices in Scrum? I think Spotify is a great example. They did what worked at the time. They continually inspected, they continually adapted, they've changed, and it's moved on. Your Scrum practices should too. You stay within the boundaries of the framework, but the way that you work within that framework should mold and change and adapt and move. And then I think we just get better.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
End screen time. Todd, how should people like and subscribe today?
Probably because it's relevant to this.
All right, that was just a quick conversation about these guys. They are on all those platforms. You could actually follow them. They give some interesting conversations too as well. So we talked about the Spotify model. Let's look at the last one we have on the list for tonight. So it's called Scrum at Scale. Everyone has their scaled framework. Everyone does. So Scrum at Scale is a way of scaling Scrum based on the fundamentals of Scrum. One thing you will notice is a lot of this framework are based on the fundamentals of Scrum, a lot of them. And complex adaptive system theory created by Jeff Sutherland. Jeff Sutherland is one of the fathers of Scrum. He built his own framework. When an organization that works according to Scrum wants to succeed in scaling Agile, it needs to focus on the whole ecosystem of teams to transform organizational culture. A couple of the frameworks we've talked about are talking about the whole system thinking, not one component, not one department, the entire organization. This is where Scrum at Scale comes to the rescue. Everybody has something to bring to the table. Scrum at Scale serves multiple teams to deliver products in a complex environment, just like every other framework does the same thing too. It is aimed to create agility for an entire enterprise. And for its flexibility, it can be used in multiple ways. Top priority for Scrum at Scale helps resolve key challenges that many organizations faces. Prioritizing effectively with limited resources. Scaled. Delivering working software in a time box with high quality. Refactoring possibilities of the software, which you would do on a normal day, even if you're just doing Scrum. Adapting to change both from an organization or product standpoint, which you're still going to do whether you're doing Scrum or any other framework. So let's watch a video.
So first things first, don't scale if you don't need to scale. So why? Why would you want to scale Scrum? Well, this is Cecilia. She's a product owner and she's responsible for maximizing the value of the product. She has just one team working on her one product. There are also other teams in the organization, many in fact, and they each work on their own product backlog and maximize the values of their product. It can take Cecilia's one team 6 whole sprints to deliver the stuff she needs. But 6 sprints is too long. We can't wait 12 weeks. If we do, she won't be able to launch her product in time and a competitor could win over the market. The cost of waiting 12 weeks is just too great. If she had 3 teams working on one product, it could take her just 4 weeks to deliver it. In a single organization, all products are not created equal. So having a single backlog where the whole organization can focus on the most important things, is pretty paramount these days. Let's look at another example. A company wants to implement new systems or completely refactor legacy systems. This could take months or even years to do, and it needs multiple teams from multiple departments across the entire organization to coordinate its efforts. It's not easy though. It's been found that as the number of Scrum teams within an organization grows, the output in working product and the velocity of those teams begin to fall. Because there's many issues like cross-team dependencies and even duplication of work. It became pretty obvious that a framework for effectively coordinating those teams was needed in order to achieve that linear scalability that we strive for. Scrum at Scale is designed to accomplish this goal via its scale-free architecture. Scrum at Scale simplifies scaling by using Scrum to scale Scrum. In Scrum at Scale, we separate the accountability of the what with the how. These two cycles consist of various components, which together produce a powerful framework for coordinating the efforts of multiple teams along a single path. The components actually allow an organization to customize their whole transformation strategy and implementation of this. A great starting point is to implement a scalable reference model for a small set of teams that does Scrum well. As this reference model of teams accelerates, the impediments and bottlenecks that delay the delivery, produce waste, or impede the whole business agility become very apparent. And the most effective way to eliminate these problems is to spread Scrum across the entire organization so that the whole value stream is optimized. Let's start with the team level process. This is as per the Scrum Guide, with the 3 artifacts, the 5 events, and the 3 roles. The goals of the team level process are to maximize the flow of completed and quality work, increase the performance of the team over time, and operate in a way that's sustainable and enriching for the team, as well as accelerate the customer feedback loop. When a set of teams need to coordinate with each other, they create a Scrum of Scrum. This is in itself a Scrum team, which is responsible for a fully integrated set of potentially shippable increments of product at the end of every sprint from all of the participating teams. As a Scrum of Scrum functions as a release team, they must be able to directly deliver the value to the customers. The Scrum Masters of all the participating teams need to be on the Scrum Scrums because they need to be responsive in real time to the impediments that are raised by their participating teams. The Scrum Master of the Scrum of Scrums is called the Scrum of Scrum Masters. And it also requires product owner representation to resolve any prioritization issues. A Scrum of Scrum backlog refinement event is held to decide what impediments are ready to be removed, how best to remove them, and how the team will know when it's done. A Scrum of Scrum retrospective is when the team representatives share any learnings or process improvements that the individual teams have succeeded with so that they can standardize those practices across all the teams. The Scaled Daily Scrum mirrors the daily scrums in that it optimizes the collaboration and performance of the network of teams. Depending on the size of the organization or the implementation, more than one Scrum of Scrums may be needed to deliver a very complicated product. In those cases, a Scrum of Scrums can be created out of multiple Scrum of Scrums. The Scrum of Scrums is an organic pattern of Scrum teams, which is infinitely scalable. Each Scrum of Scrums should have a Scrum of Scrum Masters and a scaled version of each artifact and event. Scaling the Scrum of Scrums reduces the number of communication pathways within the organization so that complexity is encapsulated. The Scrum of Scrums interfaces with the Scrum of Scrums in the exact same manner that a Scrum of Scrums interfaces with a single Scrum team, which allows for that linear scalability. The Scrum of Scrums for an entire organization is called the EAT, the Executive Action Team. It owns the Agile ecosystem, implements the Scrum values, and ensures that the Scrum roles are created and supported. The EAT is the final stop for the impediments. It pretty much destroys any impediments that come their way. And therefore, it needs to be comprised of individuals who are empowered politically, financially to remove them. The function of the EAT is to coordinate multiple Scrum of Scrums or Scrum of Scrums. The EAT is responsible for implementing this agile operating system by establishing, maintaining, and enhancing the implementation within the organization. The EAT's role is to create an organizational transformation backlog, a prioritized list of agile initiatives that need to be accomplished, and ensure that it's carried out. The EAT also ensures that a product owner organization is created and funded, and that this organization is represented on the EAT. The EAT is also responsible for measuring and improving the quality of Scrum within the organization. The goals of continuous improvement and impediment removal are to identify impediments and reframe them as opportunities, maintain a healthy and structured environment for prioritizing and removing impediments, and then verifying the resulting improvements, ensuring visibility in the organization to affect change. The goals of cross-team coordination are to coordinate similar processes across multiple related teams, mitigate cross-team dependencies to ensure that they don't become impediments, and to maintain alignment of team norms and guidelines for consistent output. Because the goal of the Scrum of Scrums is to function as a release team, the deployment of product falls under their scope, while what is contained in any release falls under the scope of the product owners. Therefore, the goals of the deployment are to deliver a consistent flow of valuable finished product to customers, to integrate the work of different teams into one seamless product, and ensure high quality of the customer experience. Next, we move on to the product owner cycle, coordinating the what. A group of product owners who need to coordinate a shared backlog that feeds a network of teams are called a product owner team. For each Scrum of Scrums, there is an associated product owner team, which aligns the team's priorities along a single path so that they can coordinate their team's backlog and build alignment with the stakeholders to support that backlog. A team's product owner is accountable for the composition and prioritization on the team's backlog and may pull backlog items from the shared meta Scrum backlog into the team backlog or generate independent backlog items at his or her discretion. The product owner teams hold a scaled version of backlog refinement, the meta Scrum. Each product owner must attend. The event is the forum for leadership, stakeholders, and all customers to express their preferences. Here, priorities can be negotiated, budgets can be changed, and teams realign to maximize the delivery of value to market. The main functions of the product owner team are to create an overarching vision for the product and make it visible to the organization, build alignment with key stakeholders to secure support for backlog implementation, generate a single prioritized backlog, ensuring that duplication of work is avoided, create a minimally uniform definition of done that applies to all the teams, eliminate dependencies raised by the teams, generate a coordinated roadmap and release plan, and decide upon and monitor metrics that gives insight into the product and market. The product owner teams, just like Scrum of Scrums, function as Scrum teams in their own right. As such, they need to have someone who acts as a Scrum Master and keeps the team on track in discussions. They also need a single person who's responsible for coordinating the generation of a single product backlog for all teams within the Scrum of Scrums. This person is designated as the Chief Product Owner. The Chief Product Owners coordinate priorities among product owners who work with individual teams. They align backlog priorities with stakeholder and customer needs. Their main responsibilities are the same as a regular POs, but at scale. The Chief Product Owner sets a strategic vision for the whole product, creates a single prioritized backlog of value to be delivered by all of the teams, works closely with the associated Scrum of Scrum Masters so that the release plan that the product owner team generates can be deployed efficiently, monitoring customer feedback, and adjusting the backlog accordingly. Just as Scrum of Scrums can grow into Scrum of Scrums, product owner teams can also expand by the same mechanism. The executive meta Scrum. The product owner teams enable a network design of product owners, which is infinitely scalable alongside the associated Scrum of Scrums. The product owner team for the entire organization meets with key stakeholders as the executive meta Scrum. The EMS owns the organizational vision and sets the strategic priorities, aligning all the teams around common goals. The goals of setting a strategic vision are to clearly align the entire organization along a shared path forward, compellingly articulate why the organization even exists, describe what the organization will do to leverage key assets in support of its mission, and respond to rapidly changing market conditions. The goals of backlog prioritization are to identify clear ordering for products, features, and services to be delivered, reflect their value creation, the risk mitigation, and internal dependencies in the ordering of the backlog, prioritize the high-level initiatives across the entire Agile organization. The goals of backlog decomposition and refinement are to break complex products and projects into independent functional elements that can be completed by one team in just one sprint. Capture and distill emerging requirements and customer feedback. Ensure all backlog items are truly ready so that they can be pulled by the individual teams. The goals of release planning are to forecast delivery of key features and capabilities, communicate this delivery expectation to stakeholders, and update prioritization as needed. The feedback component is the second point where the product owner and Scrum Master cycles touch. Product feedback drives continuous improvement through adjusting the product backlog, while the release feedback gives continuous improvement through adjusting the deployment mechanisms. The goals for obtaining and analyzing feedback are to validate our assumptions, understand how customers use and interact with our product, capture ideas for new features and functionality, define improvements to existing functionality, update our progress towards the product and project completion, to refine release planning and stakeholder alignment, and to identify improvements to deployment methods and mechanisms. Metrics and transparency. Radical transparency is essential for Scrum to function optimally, but it's only possible in an organization that has embraced the Scrum values. It gives the organization the ability to honestly assess its progress, to inspect and adapt its products and processes. Scrum at Scale suggests at bare minimum that the organization should measure productivity, the change in the amount of working product delivered per sprint, value delivery, the business value per unit of team effort, quality, defect rate or downtime, sustainability, team happiness. The goals of having metric and transparency are to provide all decision makers, including team members, with appropriate context to make good decisions, shorten the feedback cycles as much as possible to avoid overcorrection, and require minimal additional effort by teams, stakeholders, or leadership. It should be automated wherever possible. The scale-free nature of Scrum at Scale allows the design of the organization to be component-based, just like the framework itself. This permits for rebalancing or refactoring of teams in response to the market. Scrum at Scale is designed to scale productivity across the entire organization, to cut the costs of products and services while improving quality and innovation. Scrum at Scale achieves true business agility that delivers value faster and cheaper. Scrum at Scale was developed by Dr. Jeff Sutherland. For more information, go to scrumatscale.com. Thank you.
Interesting. All right, we're almost there. So which scaling framework would you guys decide to go with? So it depends on what you want to achieve through this framework. Is it about alignment, coordination, organization designed for responsiveness, or do you want to scale because you have multiple teams? All of them have success stories. All of them claim the same benefits, if you've noticed. It comes down to individual organization and teams to decide what suits them better. These are some of the parameters to decide. Is it about product development or service delivery? Is it about program or portfolio or products? How difficult to change the core system? Do you have challenges with alignment? Is it a coordination problem because of silos? Are you running digital transformation? So many parameters that has to come to bear before a company would decide which of the frameworks they want to use. At the end of the day, scaling is for us to deliver good products, good services on time with high quality. and being lean, so reducing costs if we can. All right, thank you. And then questions.